Slacktail Squad, assemble.
Greetings, members of Slaptail Nation. It's me, the Beaveman, and this is the Slaptail Squad solo. You might be wondering why the Beaveman is doing a solo Slaptail Squad episode. Is it because he's super arrogant and just likes to hear himself talk? No, not really. I don't really like to hear myself talk because honestly, it's a little bit disturbing. We've been doing a lot of podcasting, obviously. Because of the pandemic, we're not all together, so we've been doing a lot of podcasting using Skype, and it's nice to use Skype because you can see each other, but I've noticed that as time goes by, I'm very disturbed with how I look, and of course, maybe a lot of people don't like how they look. Years ago, I had, and not trying to bring anybody down or anything, shout out to the Rons, Tremonde, with the Woodman, or as I like to call him, the Ricker, and the Swan, who are all working today. It's my day off, and it's really beautiful outside. But I really wanted to podcast because it's getting cold here in Michigan, and obviously I'm not wearing my sungas, and the thighs are not out. But I want to talk about a few things just for fun, and I'm not trying to bring anybody down. But years ago, when I was a younger man, I was in a pretty serious accident, and I broke my neck and my back, and I recovered pretty quickly because thankfully at the time when I broke my neck and my back, I was in pretty good shape. I ran every day and did lots of push-ups and sit-ups. I was in the National Guard at the time, and I was pretty healthy. My son was, gosh, how young was he at that time? I think that he was maybe 4 years old. Well, I broke my neck and my back, and I had to be in a really special kind of brace. They call it a TLSO brace, which is thoracic, lumbar, sacral, which is all sections of the spine. And there was a cervical extension on it. So I had a fun little collar that came up from the brace, and I had to wear that, and it kept my neck stable. What I broke was the second vertebrae in the cervical spine. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the neck, the bones of the neck or the vertebrae are called the cervical vertebrae. And the first one looks a lot different from the other ones. The second one also looks a little bit different but the first one kind of sits on the second one, and there's a little process, if you will, and that's what it's called actually. It comes up from the second one through the first one, and that process is called the odontoid process. And it's pretty important for stabilization, and it broke off foolishly when I injured myself, broke off, and it had to be, screwed back on. So that's what they did. And like I said, I recovered pretty well, and I'm not a complainer. I've had neck and back pain ever since then. Well, no big deal. I think that it's really important to understand pain and, if not, embrace it, because honestly, if I woke up one day and I did not have any pain in my body, I would assume that I was dead, because I always have pain. And you can do a couple things with pain. You can let it dominate your life and just really fucking ruin it and just be a fucking pain in your ass, or you can kind of embrace it. There's that God, I can't even think of the name of the song, but it starts off, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." I always think of that like pain. It was like, oh, hello, pain, my old friend. You're always there. If nothing else, you're always there. So who doesn't have pain at the age of 47? A lot of people have pain, but don't let it dominate your life. So I've been living with it all these years, and I have pain in other areas that never goes away, and I just work around it. I still exercise pretty frequently, 5 or 6 days a week. I try to stay in good shape. I like to do historical martial arts, or what they call European martial arts, or if you want to call them Western martial arts, or man, I guess some people might make fun of me and call it LARPing or whatever, but I like to swing a sword and the poleaxe and the spear and do historical wrestling. We don't do so much of that anymore because of the pandemic. So I do all these things, and much like Ron's, I also do another form of martial arts, which is jiu-jitsu or shobudo, bujitsu, jiu-jitsu, very specific group of folks. And I do all these things to make myself stay in shape and not be in pain because I don't want to be ruled by pain. Well, recently, the pain has gotten worse to a point where I'm like, I really don't know how I'm going to deal with this. It's a new pain. I've always had, since being a paratrooper, I've always had knee pain. I don't know any paratroopers that don't have a little bit of knee pain, and I've always had that. And same thing, just fought around it. Not a big deal. But I started having pain from my legs all the way down to my feet, and I've had feet pain for years also, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse, and it's waking me up at night. And then I started having arm pain, same thing, just burning, intense pain in both my arms, and now I'm getting numbness from my shoulders on down, both sides. And that's concerning. Being a nurse practitioner, I've seen this sort of thing before, and it is concerning. And there's a path that I follow. There's intuitive things that I would do if somebody came to me and was experiencing those symptoms. So I figured I would go see my doctor, who I think is great. He's an old guy, probably could have retired years ago. Very good person. But he didn't do the treatment that I thought he would do. There's a saying with lots of things, and I don't know if it's just in medicine, or I'm sure probably other people have the same thing, but when you hear galloping, generally you think of a horse and not a zebra, unless you're on the Serengeti, I guess, where you would naturally assume it's a zebra. And my doctor did not look at the horse. He looked at the zebra. And instead of maybe ordering studies to look at my neck and saying, hey, maybe there's something wrong with his cervical spine and maybe it's pushing on some nerves and that's why it's causing it, because after all, the guy did break his neck years ago and he's getting older. And maybe there's some arthritis building up around what we call the foramen, or the little hole that comes off the spine where our nerves go through, where it's naturally made by the joints. And maybe because he did break his upper back also, maybe that's causing some of the problems in his legs, or he's got some nerve damage going on. So instead, my doctor just ordered blood work and put me on some medication. Now, I've said this lots of times. Medicine, or Western medicine, likes to throw medicine at everything. Well, medicine has two basic purposes. Either it promotes something or it blocks something. It's kind of how it works. And I'm not a big fan of just doing that. I like to try to get at the source of stuff. I like to find out what's really wrong with people. But I'm going to trust him and go with what he's saying. And maybe he's right. Maybe I've got some sort of a deficiency that's causing these pains. And if I do, and we correct it, fan-fucking-tastic. I don't have to have any imaging studies done. I don't think that's the case, but I'm going to trust him. Because you know what? He's a good fucking guy, and I have faith in him. And let's be honest. Because I've told you guys lots of times, this is an idiot podcast. I'm not fucking smart. And so I'm going to go with what he says. I'm going to trust him, and we'll see where that goes. So keep your fingers crossed for the Beaveman. Hopefully, he's just fine. I hope that didn't bring anybody down. I just had to, I want to talk about some stuff because the squad's not here, and so I can kind of pretty much talk about anything I want to talk about. The other thing I wanted to say is that, as we all know, we talked about before the loss of Chadwick Boseman, or Boseman. I honestly don't know how to pronounce his name. I feel really bad about that. As you might remember him from being the Black Panther. That was rough on everybody because, let's be honest, Black Panther, what a fucking awesome superhero. And Chadwick Boseman, if you've listened to any interviews with him, or if you've seen him when he did, it was Black Jeopardy on Saturday Night Live, he's just fucking awesome. Okay, he was awesome. And so what we did was we encouraged everybody to go to teeturtle.com. That's where I get a lot of my cool t-shirts, and order the King of Wakanda shirt. And we did. And so we got one for each member of the family. They came. They're really beautiful. I wish you guys could see them. I think what I'll do is I'll take a picture of it and have the Rons post it on our website, and you can put it on our Facebook page. Actually, also we'll take a picture of the whole family wearing them. So we miss you, Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther, wonderful person. It also makes me want to tell everyone once again that please get your colon cancer screening. It's really simple. Just get a colonoscopy at the age of 50. If you can get it, if your insurance cover will cover it before 50, if you're starting at like 45, go ahead and get it. Just knock it out, man. It's not a big deal. Okay, I'm going to say, for the Beaveman, it was a little bit of a big deal because when I went to get it, I've got a little bit of problem with medication. I don't respond really well to medication. It's not that it doesn't do its job. It does its job a little bit too well. And the Swan, thankfully, is always my advocate. And we always tell, anytime I have to have anything done, we always tell them ahead of time, hey, listen, the Beaveman does not respond really well to medication. He over-responds to medication. So however much medication you usually give people, you might want to give him less or be really careful with it, because here's what happens. There are certain medications you use for pain, and there are medications that you use that we call, they're kind of like hypnotics is what you can basically think of them as. So in other words, these medications will help you stay somewhat alert and follow directions as if you're some sort of automaton, but you probably won't remember anything that you did. Hence the hypnotic. Or there's also anesthetics. Same kind of principle, but the use of a hypnotic means that you can still breathe on your own. So when you go to get something done, like a colonoscopy, they will give you medication for the pain because it's going to cause some discomfort. And they're also going to give you a medication that's like a hypnotic. So these two medications, in this way, you can maintain your own breathing without them having to put a tube down your throat. Because anytime you have to do something like that, where you have to have a tube down your throat, it increases the risk of, well, let's be honest, it increases the risk of dying and heart and lung compromise. Well, I went to get my colonoscopy, and I know I'm encouraging you all to go get your colonoscopy, but the Beaveman, yes, he did have a problem with the medication, and we warned the doctor and the nurses ahead of time and said, hey, this is how he is. He's going to listen to everything you say, even though he'll be stoned off his mind. He'll think that he's lucid, and he's really not. Well, the Beaveman could not tolerate having a scope up his ass, and he kept waking up despite them giving him anesthetic. And this was the opposite effect. Generally, you can knock me the fuck out just by making me smell a Benadryl, but apparently I couldn't stay down. And all I can remember is just this thing being jabbed up my ass and it hurting really bad. And so they couldn't finish my colonoscopy. Unfortunately, they did find something when they first started making it through the tunnel, and I have to repeat the colonoscopy because it was not a completely done colonoscopy. That really sucks, because that means instead of one day of me having to drink stuff and take stuff in order to shit my brains out, I lost 5 pounds in one day from shitting, by the way. I have to do what's called a 2-day prep. So I will have to shit nonstop for 2 days, and that hurts your asshole, by the way. If you have to do it, I highly recommend you get some Desitin, the little stuff that you put on the baby's butt when they have a diaper rash. I highly suggest you get that, and just pat. Don't wipe, pat. Get some of the butt wipes that you can use also, and then use Desitin because your butthole's going to get really raw. And I have to do the 2-day one, which means now I'm going to have to prep for 2 days of shitting, and then I'm going to have to go to the hospital. They're going to actually have to knock me out and put a tube in my throat. Now, I'm not really thrilled about that because, like I said, I don't respond to medications very well. But that's probably not going to happen, you guys. You're probably not going to have to do a 2-day prep. You can probably just go and get it knocked out as an outpatient and be done with it and not have to worry about it. So get your colon cancer screening done. Plus, if you don't want to have that done, you can always do other tests at home, poop tests that you can send off through the mail, and they can check or the DNA to make sure there's no DNA in there that would suggest that you have any type of cancer cells growing. Of course, it is not 100% accurate. You'll still have to do it every 3 years. I still recommend the colonoscopy, which is also unfortunately not 100% accurate. The bottom line is this: colon cancer will kill people. It is one of the top cancers for killing folks, male and female. So just get the colon cancer screening done. Why? Because it's a slow-growing cancer, and if they go in there and they find nothing, fan-fucking-tastic, your first one, you probably won't have to repeat it for 10 years. If they find anything, they caught it early, they get rid of it. It's also a highly curable cancer. So once again, here I am. Even though the Rons isn't here, I'm talking to you about medical stuff. I know it's really boring, but hopefully, think about it this way. It killed the fucking king of Wakanda. He went up against a bunch of bad guys and kicked their asses, but got his ass kicked by colon cancer. Do you want your ass kicked by colon cancer? Fuck no. Of course not. Who wants that? Moving on. You know, the other reason why the squad members aren't here, this is what I did. It was like a little bit of an experiment. Because every week what I do, I plan the podcast. Despite me asking my wonderful squad members to come up with ideas, generally speaking, I'm the one who plans the podcast. I'm the one who coordinates the podcast. And then, of course, I'm the one who records and edits the podcast. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, you probably have lots of time on your hands, Beaveman. And that's why you do all that stuff. Do I have lots of time on my hands? No, I really fucking don't. I unfortunately drive an hour to work, which means I drive an hour home. This is also part of the reason why I think that I'm having so much pain. Because I drive for an hour, which makes me pretty dormant, and then I work for 12-hour shifts, and I don't usually get a break. So I'm on my feet for 12 hours, running from room to room, seeing patients. I have very little assistance from the, quote, people who are trained to be my assistants, the medical assistants, who are completely fucking pretty much useless. And so things that I would have done to help a doctor are not done for me. So I'm just running around for hours. And that doesn't help. And then I drive home. So it's a 14-hour day. And before I leave in the morning, I get up at like 6:15. I'm out the door by like 6:50. I drive for an hour. I'm at work. I work from 8 to 8, and then I drive home. So by the time I get home at 9 o'clock at night, I don't do much. Basically, all I do is catch up with the family, find out what they've been up to, maybe hang out and watch a sitcom for like 30 minutes or so, and then generally I go to bed because I've got a pretty strict clock. I basically go to bed at 10 o'clock and get up around 6. Not to mention the fact that I have a fucking sleep disorder, so I kind of have to sleep. It's a real bummer. I'm pretty boring. On the days that I'm off, I work on everything around the house, and I work on, unfortunately, now I work on school. And of course, with my profession, I have to always be doing something that's related to the medical field in order to keep up to date on things. And of course, what have we got now that's a hell of a pain in our ass? The pandemic. So you have to kind of research that a little bit too, not to mention all the other shit that I should know that I have to keep fresh in my mind. Does this mean that I highly encourage people not to go into medicine? Of course not. If you're smarter than the Beaveman, which everybody is, please go ahead, get into it, and take over for me. So additionally, what am I doing? Well, additionally, I decided that foolishly, I'm going to go take a college course on education, on how to become an educator. And that is taking up so much of my time. So it's not that I'm not busy, and it's not that the squad members are not busy. It's just that maybe just a little bit, I'd like them to take a little bit of initiative and say, hey, Beaveman, we all got together and decided we want a podcast at this time, and all you have to do is show up. Or they could say, hey, Beaveman, we all got together and did a podcast. Can you please edit it and upload it? That I could totally handle doing, because that wouldn't take very much of my time. The squad was designed in order for the squad to do the podcast with or without me. Thankfully, I guess, they like to have me do it. But I need a little bit of help. So for all of you members of the Slaptail Nation Army, if you've got any ideas for a podcast, or guess what, even if you wanted to be on the podcast, you would only have to tell me a little bit about yourself. We should probably talk, and then we could see if you actually wanted to be on the podcast. But I would definitely love to have your ideas. And you can always send those ideas to me at slaptailsquad@gmail.com. And you can always check out our website, slaptailnation.com, and you can send me a message that way. And you can also always find us on Facebook and Instagram. And the Rons is usually pretty much in control of that. If you've ever seen any of our posts on Facebook, you can probably tell that most of the time I didn't write them. If the Rons wrote them and I find them obnoxious or annoying, not obnoxious in a mean way, but like when he does stuff about when it was National Airborne Day and he said thank you to everybody in the armed forces, to include every single person that was ever in of every branch, when it was National Airborne Day, and that pissed me off because I'm like, dude, it's National Airborne Day. We are celebrating the airborne. Do you really need to thank everybody else and their mothers, brothers, fathers, sister, cousin, uncle? But he did anyway. So obviously, he does the posts. I don't usually do them very often. What else? Oh, so what's the most recent development? We don't really talk about the news that much, but sometimes you really got to. As we all know, or should know, if you're from the United States, or if you're from listening from this and you're from other countries, I'm sure you also probably know that our president, President Trump, did contract the coronavirus and was positive for COVID-19. Not really surprising, because why not? Because he doesn't wear a mask. And not only does he not wear a mask, he blatantly doesn't wear a mask and mocks people who do wear masks. And his staff that's around him generally doesn't wear a mask either. He's been holding lots of rallies where he's been around lots of people. So it wasn't surprising that he contracted the virus. What is surprising is that it took so long for him to contract the virus. I will say that he is very lucky, because many of you don't know this, but there has been, you could say, mutations or evolutions of the virus. And most likely, the strain that he got is not the same strain that most people experienced in the March, April, May, June timeframe. Thankfully for him, he probably had the lesser strain. And let's think about this from an evolutionary standpoint. If I was a virus and I wanted to survive, and of course this gets a little bit convoluted because technically, by definition, a virus is not a living thing. It requires a host in order to, quote, live or replicate. If I'm a virus, and of course I'm thinking like a human, but if I'm a virus and I want my brethren to survive and to propagate and to mutate and to continue to spread throughout the world and be dominant, does it make sense for me to kill my host, or does it make sense for me to evolve to where I don't kill my host and I can therefore undergo viral replication and continue on for a bajillion years and mutate and continue to thrive as a non-living entity until I find a host? Well, again, it's a human thought process, but I would say if I was a virus and I wanted to continue on, I would not kill my host. That way, I can just be more prevalent and make lots of people sick. So I think it's very possible that, and it's more likely that that's why you're not seeing so many deaths from the coronavirus now. You're seeing lots of infections, but thankfully, we're not seeing that many deaths. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't getting severely sick. I still have patients that come up positive for COVID, and thankfully, a lot of them recently have only been sick for about 3 to 5 days, which is phenomenal. It's great because there's no treatment. Despite what the president said, we don't have a treatment for COVID-19. What he got was experimental therapies, and these experimental therapies, as of this time, are only utilized in clinical trials. For example, I cannot write for remdesivir. It's not recommended that I write for that if someone has a positive COVID-19 or is positive for the SARS-CoV-2 test and therefore has COVID-19. I can't write for remdesivir. It's not an approved therapy at this time. Will it be? I don't know. I guess it has been shown to decrease the viral load and how long someone suffers from the virus. What complicates things even more right now is that we are entering flu season. Thankfully, flu activity is pretty minimal, but it's going to pick up. And of course, that means that I'm going to be seeing more patients in the clinic and less patients by video, therefore exposing myself to whatever comes along. And that's shitty. That sucks because the symptoms are so very close. And the other thing that sucks is there are tests, obviously, for the flu. We call them rapid flu tests. They're pretty accurate. But if I am to swab someone or have somebody swabbed and they come back negative for the flu, meaning that most likely they don't have it, one of two things is going to happen. One, I know that test is not 100% accurate. So clinically, if I think that they have the flu, I would like to treat them for the flu. Now, this is before the age of the pandemic. So if you clinically had the flu, I would treat you for the flu and prescribe to you an antiviral medication that has been shown to be effective at reducing the days of the symptoms of influenza or the flu. Now, does everybody need that medication? No, because it's still a virus. So it's going to decrease the amount of days that somebody suffers from that particular virus. It doesn't cure anything. The virus, you have to fight the virus yourself. You take Tylenol, you take cough medication, you get lots of fluids, and you'll get lots of rest, and you don't go to work. If they came back negative for the flu, also I know that there's a good possibility that was a poorly done test because medical assistants in our office, I've seen them do it. They do a shitty job. No matter how many times they're shown how to do it, they do a crappy job of obtaining that swab. You can get a viral panel at a hospital. You can send them for blood work to get a viral panel. But by the time that comes back, if they've had the flu, generally speaking, the amount of days that someone will suffer from the flu, most people, will be about 5 days. It would take me longer to get that test back than it would for me to just go ahead and treat them for the flu. So most of the time, before the age of the pandemic, that's what I would have done. Now, to complicate things, now we've got COVID-19. Now we have to deal with that. And the symptoms are so fucking similar that you don't know what to do. So if they come back negative for the flu, obviously the reflex response would be for me to go ahead and test them for COVID-19. Why does that suck? Because before the age of COVID-19, if they clinically had the flu, I would just put them on an antiviral medication for the flu, even though they tested negative. And so now, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. Am I going to actually do that? Also, if I suspected that they had COVID-19, I'm going to send them for that test. If that test comes back negative, and this is probably what a lot of people don't understand, is that test can be falsely negative also. So in other words, you could actually have COVID-19 but have a negative test. They've shown this time and time again. There's supposed to be a time frame when, hey, this is probably the best time frame when this test will come back positive if the person actually has the test. Well, you might not get them tested within that time frame. So what are the rules? The rules are still, hey, don't go back to work. Don't go back to doing these things, even if your test is negative, if you still have these symptoms, because you could have COVID-19 and did just fine with it and still kind of spread it. So you can see why probably a lot of medical people are going bonkers right now, because what the fuck are we supposed to do? Who knows? Also with the president, you will see that not only did he get remdesivir, he also got, I think, like monoclonal antibodies infusion or something like that. I don't know. Another experimental treatment that is only supposed to be done with persons in clinical trials. So I'm assuming that he was enrolled in the clinical trial and is now one of those people. I think that particular clinical trial for that medication had less than 300 people in it. So am I saying that the president shouldn't have got these things? Absolutely not. He's the president. If his medical team felt like he needed it, then he sure should have got it. That doesn't complicate the issue. This is what complicates the issue. Then we find out that the president was given Decadron or dexamethasone, which is a steroid. And steroids are designed to block the body's immune response, which makes me think that the time frame that we should give that is not within the first couple days of their symptoms. We're supposed to wait. Let the body do its fighting. Do what it can before we try to suppress it. Because if you suppress the immune response too soon, then the body's not going to have an immune response. And therefore, it would be harder to fight the virus. So right now, the recommendation is not to give steroids unless it's been so many days after the onset of the symptoms and you're worried about, a secondary, I don't know, cytokine response, maybe some sort of inflammatory response that's going to cause some issues. So he got that also. Basically, 3 treatments and symptom management, making sure he wasn't dehydrated, making sure that he was breathing well, all those things. Try to be a regular person who gets diagnosed with COVID-19, who doesn't know if they drop their oxygen because they're at home. They're not going to know that. They don't have a pulse oximeter, a handheld pulse oximeter at home that they slip on their finger to check their oxygen level. They're not going to know if their oxygen drops below 95. Now, I had a patient who obviously had COVID-19, and his oxygen when I saw him, I think it was below 95. And thankfully, I'd already seen this patient before, so I knew that his oxygen was not that low. And I was telling him, and he said it too. He's like, I gotta get tested for this. I'm like, yeah, you might have to go to the hospital. And his oxygen dropped even lower that day. So how would he have known that? He wouldn't have known that, because a lot of patients are very stoic and are not going to just run to the hospital. Most people are not going to run to the hospital. How would you know if your oxygen dropped? He got short of breath, but a lot of people will fight through shortness of breath and be like, it's okay, I don't have to go to the hospital, and then it could be too late. And of course, this was months and months and months ago. And now, thankfully, I'm not seeing last week I saw 2 patients that I'm pretty sure had it. I don't know what the results of their tests are, but that's just kind of how it goes. People are not going to know how low their oxygen is. And why do I say this? Because think about it. Why does the president feel so good right now? Or why is he releasing videos that he feels so good right now? Because he got an antiviral, he got those, monoclonal antibodies, and he got dexamethasone, which I'm assuming is what he got. So he got all these 3 things. He got probably IV fluids, probably had continuously running IV intravenous fluids to keep him hydrated in the hospital. He had oxygen. He had everything that he might have needed, constant monitoring of his temperature, making sure that wasn't going up. If he had a temperature, they probably, they gave him, I'm sure, medications to lower it, like acetaminophen. Anything that he would have needed. 24 hours a day, round the clock, making sure he's okay, nonstop staff, nonstop hydration, making sure he's good to go. And he should have that because he's the president. This is where it gets shitty. When you're a president and you come out and tell people not to be afraid of the virus, that's ridiculous, because nobody is going to get the same treatment that you had for minor symptoms. If his symptoms were truly minor, like they are portraying them, that, he dropped his oxygen. Okay, well, he dropped below 95. He went down to 93. Not that big of a deal. All right? They put him on oxygen. If your oxygen dropped to 93 from 95 in the outpatient setting, chances are you're probably not going to get admitted to the hospital. They're probably still going to send you home and probably ask you not to come back because you have COVID-19 and you're contagious. Don't come back unless you feel really short of breath or you have a really high fever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're not going to give you probably any medications other than what you could buy over the counter. Maybe they'll give you an inhaler. That's what I do. A lot of my patients, I'm like, let me give you an inhaler. Do you need something for cough? I'm not supposed to start steroids. It's within, it's a couple days of the symptoms just started, unless they have a pre-existing lung condition. So to come out and say, don't be scared of the COVID, don't be scared of the coronavirus. It's not just a big deal. I kicked its ass. You kicked its ass as far as we know right now. You're not out of the woods yet, first of all. And second of all, telling people not to be afraid of something that they should be afraid of and be cautious about is completely irresponsible. This is not a political podcast. Everybody, I'm sure, that listens to this podcast for sure knows that I do not support President Trump. I do believe that he should be healthy and that we should be taking care of him because he is the president. But I don't think it was very responsible for him to come out and say, don't be scared of something like that. Why shouldn't you be? That's a completely ignorant statement. Why would you tell people that? So as if we don't have enough buy-in to protect each other. Right now it's all about me, instead of about being humans. That's what it's about right now. Extremely frustrating. Extremely. I mean, how frustrating is that for medical people that already have a hard time getting buy-in with people that take care of themselves in the first place, let alone a pandemic? It's ridiculous. What else? What else has been going on? I don't know. It's not like you guys can tell me what's going on, but hey, entertainment-wise, one of the shows that I like to watch, and I know it's silly because obviously it's been off the air for a while, and what I did was I always wait for the episodes of the last season of stuff to hopefully come up on Netflix or some other streaming service. But the show that we just finished watching, and we watched pretty much all of the last season within 3 days, was The Good Place. And ever since I saw it, and I'm not trying to be a spoiler for everybody, I'd like to do an actual episode about The Good Place with the Swan and maybe the daughter and or any of my other Slaptail Squad members that watch the show. But I've been depressed ever since I watched that fucking show. I mean, seriously, you take a really good show, and it's a really good show, and then you depress the fuck out of me with the last few episodes. I damn near, this is no lie, the Beaveman damn near cried. It was that touching or upsetting, or I'm not really sure which one. I don't know if it was touching and upsetting, but I was moved. And had I watched it by myself without the daughter and the Swan, most likely I think I probably would have cried just a little bit. As you get a little bit older, I noticed there's this evolution of your thought process, for me anyway, about death and dying. When I was very young, and I think this goes back to maybe just how alone in the world I felt a little bit. When I was very young, probably, I don't know, maybe 20, I was not afraid to die. I just wasn't. It was never on my radar. And part of that might just be my upbringing as being Catholic also, thinking that, oh, well, if I die, I'm going to go to heaven and I'll get to see my grandma again. I'll get to see my dog again, all these things. But there's other beliefs, I guess, that you don't actually recognize anybody in heaven, but whatever. If my brother wasn't such a difficult person to talk to a religion about, I'd really love to just ask him questions on a podcast so he could clarify some thought processes. But I feel like he would get angry with me, and which is unfortunate because I think it would be really fun to have him on the podcast to answer some of these questions, these theoretical religious questions, because I don't remember any of these things that he says in the Catholic religion, and maybe that, but I'm a bad Catholic, so maybe they said it and I just don't remember. The point is that I think that when you're young like that, you probably don't fear death so much because it's such an abstract thought to you, being so far from removed from your age, because young people don't typically die. They die, there's of course an incidence of how much people get cancer, and of course accidents. That's probably the number one cause of death for young people, and of course suicide as well, which to me is pretty highly preventable. So you don't think about it much. As time goes by, I can remember thinking about death a few times. Now, even when I broke my neck and my back, I was not worried about dying. I was not worried about being paralyzed, because as soon as I fell, I was like, oh, I can feel everything. I probably didn't break anything. I probably just hurt myself a little bit. I was not scared of dying. What I felt most was anger at myself for hurting myself, because I knew it was going to take time for me to recover. I knew that there was a good possibility that I was not going to be able to stay in the military anymore. I just finished nursing school. I was a registered nurse. I had passed my test. I had started working in the trauma room, and I knew this was a huge setback. My biggest worry was about my son, who was 4 years old. How am I going to take care of this kid that wants to run and play? Worse, I've probably scared the shit out of him for life and damaged him for life by injuring myself. So that's what I was most concerned about. I never thought I was going to die. I was like, whatever, I'll be fine. This is fine. It's just a setback. There were other things that entered my mind instead. But there were other times that I've thought about dying as a younger person. A couple of years later, had what's called an internal carotid dissection. I was pretty sure that I was really close to dying, and you kind of are. But I bounce back from that too. But as you get older, you start thinking about these things, and then you watch a show like The Good Place, and it just fucks you up because you're like, oh my god, why do I have to think about dying more when I'm like, even if I thought that, I mean, I'm in pretty good shape despite these injuries. Like, I've been thinking, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna live a really long time, and I'm gonna stay in good shape, and I'm gonna live a really long time, and I'm gonna enjoy my life. Someday I'm gonna have grandchildren. I'm gonna enjoy them. They're gonna be like, wow, Grandpa's in really good shape, and he gets to do all kinds of shit with us, and he's the bomb. And then someday I'm gonna be a great grandfather, and my great grandkids are gonna do the same thing. They're gonna be like, wow, Grandpa's in really good shape. He's the bomb. That's what I want to be. But the inevitability of that is when you sit there and think about it, you're like, wow, I've already lived half of my life, most likely. Which means half of my life, if I'm lucky and I lived to 94, I've already lived half of my life. How much of it did I squander by not doing what I should have done to be in even more awesome shape? I never should have broke my neck. That was a stupid mistake on my own part. All these things that are compounding. And then you think about it now and you're like, what the fuck? I'm running out of fucking time. I'm not doing everything that I want to fucking do. And when I look at how old my son is, holy shit, my son's 22. Holy fuck, what am I going to do now? Now I'm like, well, I don't want him to rush out and, have children so I can be a grandfather just because I want to be a grandfather and not be some old fucking grandfather, be someone that is actually actively involved in my grandchildren's life and hangs out with them and does all kinds of cool shit. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't want him to rush off and have children because, holy fuck, he's not ready to have children. Holy shit, no. So what do? You just think about like, okay, well, let's see. If I'm lucky, he'll have he'll have a really good job and he'll be married and he'll be settled in life. And then if I'm lucky, by the time he's 25, he'll have a child. So by then I'll be 50 and holy fuck, in order to really hang out with them and do cool shit, by the time they're 20, I'll be 70. And by the time they're 25, maybe they'll have a child and I'll be 75. And then by the time that kid is, 10 years old, I'll be 85. And hopefully he'll want to do stuff and I'll be like in really good shape, but most likely not. And if I'm lucky, I won't pass away till he's like, 30. But that's kind of probably not going to happen. The other thing is, when you're in the medical field, obviously you take care of people who are of all ages. And, Ron's has a real, maybe a romanticized version of what he thinks medicine is like and what our day-to-day activities like. He's like, oh, yeah, you got to go with your family because they might get, they might get bad news. I'm like, yeah, most of the time you're not giving somebody bad news. It's not great news. It's not like they're going to die, but you're like, oh, this is the problem. Your blood sugar's not under control, your diabetes is not under control, your blood pressure's not under control, your cholesterol, this is all the stuff that we got to do to make sure that you have longevity and take care of you. Okay, but that's not people with chronic diseases are kind of used to hearing that information and they either do something about it or they don't. It's not like all day long, like on television, like, oh, you have cancer and yes, we must do this treatment for you. And, I'm going to send you to Amish Bob. Hello, I'm Amish Bob. I'm your, quote, doctor today. Does having 8 years of experience and 3 years or 5 years as a residency just to have some piece of paper really make you a doctor? I mean, I've birthed the calf before. Okay, thanks, Amish Bob. You can go ahead and step to the side. But yes, you really should have some sort of formal education to call yourself a doctor, Amish Bob. They know. Okay, but yeah, it's not like that. But of course, I'm confronted by these different age ranges, and when you take care of people that are elderly, it's frightening to see all these things that they experience. And let's be honest, maybe that's the exception. Maybe there are lots of people that live really quite a long life and don't have any problems whatsoever. My, through marriage, great-grandma, she's 95 years old. She really don't have any fucking problems. She got a little bit of back pain, but otherwise, she lives by herself. She doesn't fall. She takes good care of herself. She eats a healthy diet, and she's doing just fine. So, is she the exception? Is she the rule? I don't know, because obviously the patients that I see are sick or ill. What I don't want to happen, this is what I tell you, what I really don't want to happen to me, and that's probably why I work so diligently to keep my mind active, is I don't want Alzheimer's disease. I don't want dementia. I don't want to not remember the new things in my life and only remember the old things. When you see patients with dementia and you see the exasperation on their families' faces and they want you to fix them when there is no fix. There's no fix for that. That's what's frightening. There's no fix for that. This person that now doesn't know who you are and who does things out of impulse all the time, and you want to keep them at home because you love them. What if they weren't at home? You put them in a nursing home, and then how often do you see them? Or you worry about how they're treated. They're just another resident, or maybe they won't remember you anymore if you put them there. But there's this little thing called caregiver strain that if you actually took care of mom or dad, how much would you still think of them as mom or dad as opposed to some sort of an obligation, and now that you have to take care of them and do all these things for them and they don't even know who you are and it seems like they won't even tell you they love you anymore or hold you anymore, how well will you deal with something like that? How good is that for your own psyche? Would you start to resent that person and wish that you'd never undertaken that mission? Worse, would you be waiting for them to die and be okay with it? Because we're all going to die. That's the inevitability. But if you had to do something like that, how well would you really handle it? Now, I love my mom and dad, and I would be more than happy to take care of them. I'd be more than happy for them to move in with me if I had a bigger house and I could old person proof it for them and so that they'd be happy. But if they had dementia and didn't know me and didn't, what I'm saying is you wouldn't want to ruin that mindset or that way that you loved them. You wouldn't want that ruined for you. So sometimes it would be okay to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I do need to put them in a home and just visit them in that home and make sure other people are, have other people take care of them so that I could just enjoy them as a person. If they never had dementia or anything like that, I think that I would be more than happy to be with my parents until the day they died. However, thankfully, I think that the obligation goes to the oldest brother, so I think that he has to do that, or the youngest brother. I think in that hierarchy of having to take care of your elderly folks, I think that falls outside of the scope of the middle child. I don't think that is me that has to do that. It probably won't happen anyway. My parents like to live dangerously. For some reason, they decided that it was a good idea to put in new stairs in the house, which is fine. But then my dad highly lacquered them, and they are slippery as fuck. And despite me telling them over and over and over again that one of them is going to fall down the stairs and kill themselves, they're still slippery. I haven't been over there. I just naturally assume it is because my parents don't do anything that I ask them to do. They'll call me and ask me for advice, but they don't listen to anything I say, which I don't know why people ask you for advice if they're not going to listen to anything you say. Actually, I do know why. People want you to tell them what they want to hear, not what you have to say. So giving advice is usually a really bad idea. Honestly, the only person outside of the three people that I live with, because they don't always listen to my advice either, obviously. The only person that I don't mind giving advice to, because I know he actually values my opinion and will listen to me, is Tremonde. I don't mind giving Tremonde advice, medical advice, because I know that man is going to listen to me. He's highly intelligent, and he can recognize when he doesn't know something and he needs help. So that's the difference between him and the majority of other people in this world. There's plenty of people that I know who are sick and who I predicted would get sick and did get sick, and if I'd have told them that I thought this, they wouldn't have listened to me anyway. And I have people that I know personally that are sick now and have asked for my advice on stuff, and I've begrudgingly given it. Do I think that they followed anything I said? Of course not. But if they wanted that advice, I'll give it to them. But I try not to do that very often. I want people to be my friends, not to ask me medical advice. And I tell people all the time, well, fuck, I don't know. My own patients don't fucking listen. Why do I think you're going to listen? It's no different. Which also might be why the Beaveman's a little bit burned out on his practice and probably should do something else. What else am I going to do though? I'm not making any money from podcasting, even though I enjoy it, and this is what I would love to do full time. I'm not making any money. Ain't nobody sending the Beaveman money. And honestly, I don't get that much time to do any type of marketing. That's also the Ron's job. So Ron's, if you're listening to this, why don't you do some slaptail marketing, bitch? What else? What else is going on today? Oh, man. Oh, just ridiculousness. Still can't get my roof replaced. I don't know what the fuck's going on with that. You know what, another thing that bothers me is the lack of drive of other people. I'm going to use the Swan as an example. We have been in this house for 11 years. 11 years. Intentionally, I don't know what the reasoning behind this is, but our dining room does not have blinds on the windows. Our dining room doesn't. The guest bathroom doesn't. My son's room doesn't. And that's it. I think that's it. And for years, I've asked the Swan, to get blinds for those. See, I still have this old-fashioned mindset, and I'm probably wrong about it, but I do a lot of stuff around the house. But my mindset is this: interior decoration and or things like that should be something that the wife is interested in doing because it's her home. The home is, that's her thing. I've got spaces in the home that are mine that, well, I don't know if they're mine, but definitely I'm kind of dominant in that area, which would be the office, of which I am podcasting in right now, and maybe not even the garage, because I don't like spending time in the garage, but I think that that's kind of my more areas, where hers is the entire house. So you can go into every room of this house and see that the Swan has been there and or occupies that area, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But 11 years now, I've been asking for blinds on the fucking windows, and we don't fucking have them. And I keep asking and asking and asking, so much so that I'm like, you know what, if you just go to this website, if you literally just go to this website, it's not on the computer. Okay. If you literally go to the website, let's see, Skylar is here now, and all you have to do is turn your mic on. Okay. Skylar's here. He's a guest. He just popped in to say hello.
Hello.
And, right now, I'm ranting and raving about the fact that we don't have any blinds on our windows and not understanding why people are so good at procrastinating.
I see.
Well, let's take Skylar as an example of procrastination. What do you think that you've procrastinated most on?
Probably, let's see.
See, that's the other thing, is people don't think that they procrastinate. That's why he's taking so long to answer. He's like, do I procrastinate? I don't think so. I'm not much of a procrastinator.
I know I do, but it's just how much do I want to bring my mood down today?
Oh, I see. All right. Well, I was talking about the blinds that we still don't have on our house despite living here for 11 years and me asking over and over and over and over and over again to get blinds. So I'm going to throw the Swan under the bus because she still hasn't measured for blinds and or ordered them. And I said specifically, no matter what, Swan, I want them before Halloween. That's all I want. I just want blinds before Halloween. It's only a few rooms. What I don't want to happen is this. I don't want to be the one who ends up ordering them because then I'm just going to say, see, I was right. Once again, you didn't do what I asked you to do. It's very annoying. The Swan was off on her quasi-vacation for days, and she says to me, you know what? I don't understand how people can be so occupied on their stay-at-home vacations. There's not anything to do. I'm like, there's always something to do. My mind is always thinking of something that has to be done. It doesn't mean I want to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do it. It just means that there's always, if you own a house, there's always shit you have to fucking do.
Yeah, even when I was just living like in my apartment, there was usually always stuff to do. I mean, I would clean pretty constantly, and it was a fairly sized apartment, but I would be cleaning constantly or just doing stuff that took up time because I just didn't really have that much else to do. But I usually find stuff to do at home. Like, it's pretty rare for me to be here and get bored. Like, there's always something to do.
The question is, do you do it? That's the question. So there's always something to do, but do you actually do it?
If I'm in a good mood, yes. I usually get into really like cleaning heavy moods or work heavy moods, and they come and go a lot. But usually Sunday is the day I will clean every single thing and then reset for the entire week. And if I start doing that, then I start organizing everything, and then I start cleaning everything and clearing everything out, and then I'll be tired for like 3 days because I just cleaned everything, and then it just starts all over again. But it goes in like really big cycles. So I'm very bad at trying to like only do a few things a day, because once I'm in the mood to get stuff done, I'll just get it all done in the same day. So then it just seems like I didn't do anything else for all the other days because it's already done.
Yeah. With a house, it's kind of a pain in the ass, especially, well, not especially, because I'm assuming that everybody that doesn't have a change of season like us has stuff that they have to do. It's just different stuff. I remember when we were gonna move to Arizona, I was really excited because I'm like, no more raking leaves, no more cleaning gutters, no more plowing snow, no more shoveling snow. But we didn't move, so we're here still in Michigan, and it's beautiful. And now at this point, I'm like, you know what? I thought about moving to Oregon, but until the whole state caught on fire, and now I'm like, you know what? I probably am never gonna move out of Michigan now. I've pretty much decided. I'm like, there's chances of me moving now are probably pretty slim because the world is on fire, and actually, I think that it's gonna be this great migration to the Midwest.
I think that the Midwest definitely is a little bit, because I've traveled to so many different places and I like so many different environments and everything, but the Midwest is easily the environment I like the most. Like, there is a lot of work living in the Midwest. Like, you have to put up with a lot. You've got to put up with a lot in each season. But I think when you're not doing that work to put up with it and you're just allowed to enjoy it, it is a lot better than most other places.
Yeah, and the work is you actually have to. What you do is you just change your mindset. Right now, it's our leaf season. That's going to be going on for at least 2 months, which means you could rake your entire lawn and make it look beautiful and have no leaves, and go out 3 hours later and it's covered again. And it does suck. But you also have to look at it like this and go, you know what? I'm outside, I'm raking, it's not so bad. And after a while, after you've done it for a while, once you get over that initial pissed, now you're like, oh, I want this to look good. Really want to, it's kind of cool to watch each section be totally clear. And then you just try not to look at it the rest of the day because it's going to get shitty again. Like the gutters. You can clean the gutters during this time frame and then have to go clean it again 1 week later, which kind of blows. But, that's home ownership. That's how it is. And then, of course, we have to prep for winter, so you got to do other stuff. And they go, I got to put this away, I got to put that away, I got to get this ready, and blah, blah, blah. And now I got to look forward to snow. But you just change your mindset. So you either like snow sports or you don't like snow sports. And if you don't like snow sports, you kind of look forward to time inside to read that book that you wanted to read, or watch that movie that you wanted to watch, or hang out and do stuff inside.
Yeah, the good thing about winter is that this is like one of the best stretches of the year, because from October through New Year's, there's always something to look forward to. And then, at least here in Michigan, the seasons change. We get 2 seasons in that span where the leaves start falling, and then we get to start preparing for Thanksgiving and Christmas, which usually have snow. And then just staying inside and trying to defend from how cold it gets. But it is nice because then you get to, I like being inside, so I have to force myself to go outside anyway, which is nice for like the raking and stuff like that. But in the winter, I can pretty much just be in my Christmas sweater clothing and my pajamas and stuff like I already do, and just enjoy how nice and beautiful it is outside.
I think that is something that's unique to the Midwest, is that people start to get excited about, oh, it's almost sweater season, I can wear my sweater. And girls are like, oh, it's what are they, leggings season, I can start wearing my leggings again. So I think that we adapt in some way. Like, in some way we make it, we're like, oh, I get excited about doing this, which is a little bit goofy. Maybe that's why we look backwards to the rest of the country, but whatever. But yeah, you have to enjoy it. I keep telling myself I'm going to take up a snow sport, but I really don't think that's going to ever happen.
I think that I get the most enjoyment out of just how the state feels when there's snow, because when it's fresh snow, when it's not like that time where it's like March when everything looks disgusting, it's pretty magical. So everything looks nice, and you're just waiting for the holidays and all the good stuff to come. and we have the fireplace, so we can just turn on the fireplace and music and just relax. And then the most we have to worry about is like the driveway. You don't have to worry about the backyard or anything like that.
Yeah, that's kind of the nice thing. You're like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to mow right now. And let's be honest, this year, I mean, we've had a snowblower, but this year I'm going to get a king shit snowblower. It's going to throw the snow like freaking 30 fucking feet. It's going to be pretty awesome. And yeah, just stuff like that. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to do this. You get excited about that sort of shit. Yeah, if we got an entire blanket of snow every night and we were able to clear it out that day and the sun was out in the sky and it had a blue sky, I would not care if we had snow every day, because that's when it's really cool. That's when you're like, oh, fresh blanket of snow on everything. The world looks clean. The sky is blue and the sun is out. That's when it's the shit. Then you're like, oh yeah, this is fucking nice. Then you can actually step outside and enjoy it for a little bit.
Yeah, then you just get to enjoy how it actually is, which is nice.
Yeah. But does that happen? Nah, not so often.
It happens every once in a while.
Yeah, it's a pretty gray. I mean, it's pretty gray here. That's kind of the thing.
But I also liked that because I like sunny weather, but I also love like stormy gray weather. So I do like winter a lot because then it's darker earlier, and that just gives me like the sense that, okay, I get to just stay inside and do pretty much whatever. And as long as the inside of the house is clean and everything inside is good, then you pretty much just get to enjoy doing whatever.
Yeah. I'm the opposite though. I don't like it to get dark early. I hate that. Cuz it's always been like that. I'm like, oh, I go to work when it's dark. I come home, it's dark. Yeah, that sucks. That I don't like.
Yeah, that is one. The only thing I liked about that when I was working is that I liked driving to work when it was super, super dark, because then it felt like it was early in the day and I didn't have to work as long. But yeah, you come home and it's pretty dark.
Yeah. But it's just the trade-off, I guess. I do think that eventually I would like to have a house that I do not have to take that much care of. That would be nice, though.
Yeah.
Like you live in the woods somewhere, in a cabin, where I don't have to mow the lawn, and I could just hunt and hang out. That would be kind of cool. But probably not going to happen.
But you never know. Michigan, there's tons of different lifestyle choices that you can make in Michigan. You can live in giant mansions or very rural log cabins or nice suburban homes like ours.
Or on the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do all that good fun stuff. Yeah, so I don't know. I think my goal for this winter then, obviously once I knock out all this school stuff that I'm doing, is I haven't picked up my guitar for at least 3 months. I still suck at it, but I'm going to have to pick up my guitar again. I keep issuing these challenges to Skylar, but he never accepts the challenge, so it's one of those things. And issuing the challenge to the daughter is ridiculous, because you can't get the daughter to do anything that she doesn't want to do. She has to have that idea first in her head, and then everybody else has to comply with her.
But even if she gets an idea, it's not that often that she'll act on it. So she's kind of just a lump. Which, I mean, I also am kind of just a lump, but I am at least trying to do things that are seen as, artistic or expanding my mind or working on whatever. But yeah, if Summer doesn't want to, or if the daughter doesn't want to do anything, she just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, or even if you tell her to do something, she doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
She probably won't do it. I just told her that she needs to rake every day, and she's like, yeah, I'm probably not going to do that. I'm like, oh, it wasn't a request. It was that you are going to rake every day. Yeah, it makes you wonder who actually is the head of the household.
Yeah, it's definitely not me. She will not listen to anything I say.
Yeah, well, that's just her. But yeah, that's about it though. I've ranted and raved for over an hour, but what's the takeaway? The takeaway is this. Let's see. You get your colon cancer screening so you don't die like Chadwick Boseman did. That would be super important. We miss you, King of Wakanda. Wakanda forever. Check out teaturtle.com and order your King of Wakanda shirts. I'm sure they still have them. They did donate the proceeds, percent of the proceeds for each of those sales. And the Swan said that they actually made over, I think they donated over $20,000 to the American Cancer Society from their t-shirt sales. So that's pretty impressive. I might be wrong on that quote, but that's what the Swan said. But you guys can always check out tturtle.com. They've got, oh my gosh, all kinds of cool shirts. That's where I get my unicorn shirts from, and all kinds of other fun stuff. Also, as always, you can check out our friends at Single Life on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them online, and you can get your clothing from there. And for those of you folks who are lucky enough to live where it's warm all the time, you can still get your bikinis and shorts from them, and you can rock your silkies and your bikinis all the time. Unfortunately, I live in Michigan. That's not going to happen. My silky time is up, and now it's about sweatshirts and sweatsuit time, and they don't make those. I might wear my silkies when I work out, but it depends how hot I can get while working out. Also, of course, as always, we like to promote Scars and Stripes coffee, and you can always check out Carrie's Scars and Stripes coffee, and you can order stuff such as, coffee, and you can also order t-shirts and all those other fun things, and her merch, and I think she has cups and all that other good stuff too, and you can do that, and that will support a veteran-owned business, which, of course, is very helpful for the rest of us. She's a big Trump supporter. I am not. So do not consider my support of her site to be any sort of support for President Trump, because I don't support him whatsoever. But I am glad that he is feeling better, obviously, because he is our president. But I really hope Biden wins, and we don't have to deal with him for anymore. The upside is, even if President Trump does win, we only got to deal with him for 4 more years.
And that's legally binding.
And it seems like an eternity, but the end is near. No matter what, the end is near. I really hope the end is near sooner, but no matter what, he can't be president longer than 4 more years. So that should make everybody just a little bit happier. Makes me happier. Yeah. All right. Anything you need to promote there, Skylar? Anything that coming up that you want to promote?
Nope. I have a few things that I'm working on, but they're very, very early, so I have nothing to promote at this time.
And where can they find you if they want to have any editing work done? Because you are a qualified, certified editor now.
Yeah, so if you have any editing requests or pretty much anything to do with multimedia, you can go to my brand new shiny website, which is skylarbeavers.com, and there's contact forms on there if you want to reach out to me. There's my portfolio. There's an About Me page, and I also post writing articles on there, just about different topics, usually related to movies. And yeah.
Cool. All right. What else? Let's see. If they want to get a hold of your significant other, if they're interested in any graphic work, they can also do that.
Yeah, and it'd be the same thing for her. So my girlfriend does graphic design and illustration, so she is in school at Kendall College of Art and Design, and it's the same thing for her. If you want to visit her website, it's michaelaportee.com, MIKAYLAPORTEE.com, and she's got all her works on there for sale that she can ship directly to you, or if you want to contact her, it's basically the same thing, as our websites are pretty similar.
Good. Yeah, she does all the artwork for our show, which is very good. And I'm also looking at a portrait, it's a digital copy of her Jimi Hendrix. Is that Jimmy? Yeah, that's Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's very nice. Very nice. All right. Okay. I guess that's it for me, the Beaveman. And next time it should be the rest of the squad. Look forward to that, because I really want to do a podcast about how I was so emotionally distraught from The Good Place. And I'll probably do that with the Swan and the daughter. All right. So look forward to that. That's it from me, the Beaveman. Adios, mooch fuckos.
Bye-bye.